The mission was over, or at least it should have been. I had packed the last of my equipment into the transport shuttle, checking the calibrations one last time while humming a song I barely remembered from Earth. The barren landscape outside stretched like a metallic desert, dust storms swirling in distant craters, the sky an impossible gradient of green and violet. Normally, I would have felt triumphant, relieved, maybe even a little smug. Instead, I felt a prickling sense of unease, like stepping into water that looked shallow but was hiding sinkholes. I straightened up, brushing imaginary dust off my uniform, and tried to convince myself I was ready. Just a shuttle ride back to Earth, I muttered, mostly to calm my own nerves. No alien warriors, no surprise obstacles, just me, a comfy chair, and the sweet promise of a shower that doesn't smell like ionized metal. Then she appeared. At first glance she looked human, tall, athletic, sharp features, but there was no mistaking the long ears that curved gracefully from her skull, each movement fluid and deliberate. They twitched with an awareness I envied, as if they could sense every nuance of the atmosphere, every subtle intention. Her armor was a blend of sleek alloys and flexible material, almost alive with energy patterns that pulsed along her shoulders and arms. She stepped into the shuttle bay with quiet precision, boots barely making a sound on the metal floor. "You're leaving," she said, voice firm, melodic, carrying that rare combination of authority and curiosity. I blinked. Yeah. Mission S done. Departure scheduled. ETA to Earth, approximately 12 hours of blissful solitude. Her ears twitched and she stepped closer. "You cannot leave." I froze mid-stretch, blinking like a startled animal. Excuse me." "I said you cannot leave," she repeated, her expression unreadable, though the subtle curl at the corner of her lips suggested amusement, or maybe disbelief. "Your presence is required here. Remaining is mandatory." I raised an eyebrow. "Mandatory? By what authority? Galactic law, interstellar workplace rules, or are you just bored?" "By necessity," she replied evenly. "Your departure compromises several factors." Her eyes narrowed slightly, and the tips of her long ears angled forward. "Factors of which you are oblivious, and would remain so unless supervised." I groaned and rubbed my temples. Of course. Nothing like being forced to stay because some superorganized, very pointy-eared alien warrior decided I wasn't responsible enough to handle a shuttle. She tilted her head, clearly amused by my sarcasm. "You underestimate your own unpredictability." I shot her a weary grin. "I am an unpredictable human. That's basically my superpower. Usually comes with coffee and late-night complaints about bureaucracy." She considered this, and I noticed her ears twitch in a subtle rhythm. "Humor in the face of complication, intriguing. Your species may be less illogical than assumed." "Less illogical," I muttered. "That's a compliment, right? Or an insult disguised in diplomatic language?" "Both," she said simply, "and neither." I pinched the bridge of my nose, taking a slow breath. "All right. Humor aside, if you're going to stop me from leaving, at least explain why. And I mean something more substantial than 'you are unpredictable.'" Her eyes glinted with a hint of something unreadable. "Because I have grown accustomed to your presence, and because leaving now would be inconvenient for reasons beyond your comprehension." I blinked. Accomplished human mission, ready to return home, but now stuck because an alien warrior is emotionally attached to me. That is a new entry in my list of improbable situations. "You mock," she said, "but I am serious." "I can tell," I replied. "Your ears give it away, or is that a warning, subtle threat, a nuanced auditory version of 'don't even think about it'?" She allowed a very small, almost imperceptible smile. "Observation correct. You are amusingly competent at reading cues, but this is not a choice." I exhaled loudly, running a hand over my face. "Fantastic. I survived hostile terrain, rogue drones, and near-lethal atmospheric storms. And now I'm trapped in a shuttle bay with a pointy-eared warrior who refuses to acknowledge the concept of mission completion. Best day ever. Your sarcasm is noted, she said, clearly entertained. And yet your compliance may be necessary. I shook my head, muttering under my breath. Compliance, that's my new life motto apparently. She stepped closer, and I noticed the subtle energy patterns along her armor pulse brighter, almost like a heartbeat. You will remain, she said simply, until the factors are resolved. Your skills, your presence, your unpredictability are all required. I paused. Unpredictability again. That seems redundant. And frankly, I'm starting to feel like a lab experiment. You are, she replied calmly, a very necessary one. I groaned theatrically, waving a hand in mock surrender. All right, you win, pointy-eared enforcer of galactic affairs. I will remain for now, but this is going on my report, somewhere, where someone will understand the sheer absurdity of this. Her lips curled in a small smile, and her ears twitched in what I had learned to recognize as approval. You will adapt, she said, as all humans eventually do. I slumped slightly, realizing that my mission might be complete, but my journey was only beginning. Somehow, in this strange mix of humor, authority, and unexpected emotional complexity, I had a feeling that staying here with her would be far more challenging and far more enlightening than anything I had faced on this planet. And as I glanced at her, poised, watchful, yet strangely protective, I understood that returning to Earth was no longer the only horizon I had to consider. I sighed. Great. Mission over, yet the real challenge begins. And it looks like it has ears. I woke to the soft hum of the ship, the light of distant stars filtering through the observation panels, casting patterns across the metallic floor. The shuttle bay had become less intimidating overnight, though I still half expected it to explode if I breathed too loudly. Celira was already there, standing by a console that hovered midair, her long ears twitching as if listening to some imperceptible rhythm of the ship itself. She turned at the sound of my footsteps, her posture calm, commanding, but with the faintest hint of amusement at my groggy expression. "Good morning," she said, her voice melodic but edged with authority. "You have rested adequately. Your next phase begins now." I blinked, forcing myself upright, and tried to smile. Phase, right. And I assume phase is just a nice way of saying I'm not going anywhere today. "You assume correctly," she replied, the corners of her lips curving slightly. "You will remain under observation until your integration with local operations is complete." I groaned. Integration. That sounds suspiciously like, we're keeping you here to see what you're good at, aka, babysitting me while I try not to get myself killed again. Her ears twitched forward in amusement. Your assessment is not entirely incorrect. However, the duration and scope are subject to adjustment based on performance. Performance, huh? I said, trying to rise to the challenge despite the lingering ache in my muscles. Well, I've survived environmental hazards, hostile patrols, and rogue drones. Surely that qualifies as top-tier human performance. You underestimate the demands ahead, she said, motioning toward the corridor that led to the ship's command center. The galaxy does not reward past achievements. It measures adaptability. I followed her, stepping over the subtle shifts in gravity fields the ship created to assist movement. The walls were alive with softly glowing panels that changed in hue as we passed, reacting to our presence. Adaptability, I muttered, because being tossed into alien bureaucracy wasn't enough, right? Celira didn't respond immediately, instead pausing beside a projection of the local sector, a holographic map dotted with energy anomalies, orbiting stations, and uncharted territories. "Observe," she instructed. "These are the variables influencing your previous mission. Many are now under threat. You must understand them before departure can be considered." I squinted at the swirling energy patterns. Right, variables threatening my completed mission. Got it. So, basically, staying here is mandatory survival training disguised as tutoring. "You mock," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips, "but your humor is a tool. It reduces stress and facilitates cognitive response. I snorted. Reduce stress. Surrounded by pointy-eared enforcers, rogue factions, and glowing energy anomalies. Sure, nothing says relaxation like impending galactic chaos. Her ears flicked forward, a subtle laugh hidden in the movement. Your perspective is human, yet effective in some contexts. Now consider this scenario. She swiped a hand through the hologram and a new set of markers appeared. If you were to depart without consideration, the anomalies would escalate, endangering nearby colonies. Your integration now prevents far-reaching consequences. I exhaled, leaning against a console. So, let me get this straight. I finish my mission, the universe says, "Nice work, human, now stick around." And suddenly my presence is critical because I might accidentally unravel the galaxy if I leave. Accurate, she said, tilting her head. Although your unintended influence is only part of the calculation, your skills and insight provide stability. I rubbed my face. Stability. I am a walking chaos generator, and now I am a stabilizer. Got it. Any other contradictions I should know about? She allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Your humor, though illogical, facilitates morale and cooperation. It is beneficial. Great, I muttered. Illogical humor saves planets now. Just another day in the life of a human operative. She led me through the corridors, explaining the various control nodes and energy fields, and I realized that despite my exhaustion, I was fascinated. The ship was a marvel of alien engineering, the panels alive with responsive energy, the corridors adjusting subtly to movement, and every action seemingly harmonized with her commands. I kept up with her explanations, inserting sarcastic commentary where possible, which seemed to amuse her, though she maintained a disciplined composure. As we approached the Tactical Operations Center, a warning siren pulsed lightly. A small section of the map flashed red. "Rogue patrol detected," she said. "We must proceed with caution. Your input will be evaluated." I groaned. Input? I barely survived the first time you evaluated me. Now I get hands-on with a hostile patrol. Fantastic. You will adapt, she said calmly, her long ears flicking in a rhythm I had come to recognize as confidence. And your perspective is valuable. Observe and respond. Humor may assist in tension management. I muttered something about laughing at a laser rifle while dodging fire being counterintuitive, but she ignored it. Or perhaps she was already calculating how my improvisation could help. We moved into position, the holographic map overlaying the tactical view of the patrol, and I felt a thrill of adrenaline despite the fatigue. "Ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be," I said, and despite the tension, a smirk tugged at my lips. "Let's go save the galaxy again." Her ears flicked forward, and I realized that in this strange, high-stakes partnership, I was no longer the bewildered human just trying to survive. With her guidance, humor, and quiet assessment of every subtle action, I was beginning to understand what it meant to belong in this galaxy, to trust someone utterly different, and to face the unknown with a combination of skill, wit, and unexpected courage. And as we engaged the rogue patrol, dodging energy blasts and maneuvering through the ship's responsive corridors, I realized that leaving Earth had been the easy part. Staying, and learning to survive alongside Celera, was the real adventure. The emergency sirens had faded, replaced by the steady, familiar hum of the ship as it adjusted its orbit around the planet's energy fields. I leaned against the railing in the observation deck, watching the swirling colors of the atmosphere below and feeling the strange sense of calm that comes after surviving chaos. Celera was beside me, long ears angled forward, scanning the readings on a floating panel with the same precision she had maintained throughout every mission. Yet there was something softer in her posture today, something almost human in its quiet contentment. "You have adapted well," she said, her voice calm, but carrying that subtle warmth I had come to notice. "Your integration with local operations is complete. You have performed beyond expectations." I laughed softly, a little breathless from adrenaline and exhaustion. Integration, huh? I still can't believe I went from mission complete, returning to Earth, to being stuck babysat by a pointy-eared alien warrior who won't let me leave. Yet here we are. Somehow I survived and didn't completely screw up. Her lips curved in a faint smile. Your humor remains effective. I shook my head, smiling despite the lingering aches. Effective or insane, still not sure which, but I'll take it. She regarded me with a quiet intensity that had always been a mix of assessment and curiosity. You have changed, she said simply. Your perspective has broadened. You understand the stakes not only for yourself but for others around you. You have learned trust, cooperation, and restraint. Restraint, I repeated, chuckling. I've mostly learned that improvising while panicking can sometimes save the day. That counts, right? Her ears twitched in amusement. Improvisation is valuable. Controlled improvisation is more so. I exhaled, leaning on the railing. The view below was mesmerizing. Storms of energy danced across the planet's surface, brilliant streaks of light arcing between swirling clouds. It was dangerous, beautiful, alive. And I realized, looking at it, that I had changed too. I was no longer the human whose only focus had been completing a mission and getting home. I had grown into someone capable of making decisions that mattered to more than just myself, of considering consequences, and of caring for someone utterly different from me. Someone who had refused to let me leave, but in doing so had pushed me to discover who I could be. Celira stepped closer, and the subtle warmth of her presence was grounding, almost comforting. The choice remains yours, she said, voice low. You may depart for Earth or you may remain. Both are valid. Both have consequences. I turned to her, studying the subtle flicker of light in her eyes, the way her ears tilted slightly forward, the way her stance radiated patience and expectation. I realized that staying was no longer about being trapped or forced. It was about choice, about partnership. You know, I said carefully, I came here thinking this mission would end with me heading home. I never imagined it would turn into this. With you, and everything we've dealt with, I don't want to go back just yet. Not if it means leaving this behind. Her lips quirked in what I could only describe as a small, victorious smile. Then you will stay, she said, not because I demand it, but because you have chosen it. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Not the weight of danger, that never fully disappears, but the weight of indecision and uncertainty. I had grown. I had learned to value trust, collaboration, and understanding, and even to find humor in situations that could have been catastrophic. And I had discovered that sometimes, the journey itself mattered more than the mission's completion. The ship adjusted its orbit, sensors mapping the energy storms below, and I realized that staying meant facing new challenges together, challenges that would test our limits, intellect, and even our patience. Yet for the first time, the unknown did not terrify me. It exhilarated me. I had learned to navigate danger, to improvise under pressure, and to trust not just in my own instincts but in someone else's guidance. We have secured the region, Celira said, finally turning to me fully. Threats neutralized, operations stabilized. Your presence has ensured success. Your next steps are yours to define. I laughed softly, a warm sound that echoed lightly across the observation deck. Next steps, huh? I suppose that means planning, strategizing, and, oh yeah, more danger, more improvisation, more pointy ears and sarcasm. She allowed herself a small laugh, melodic and almost teasing. Indeed, but you will not be alone. I looked at her and realized that I didn't want to be alone. Not anymore. I had grown from a human focused solely on completing a mission to someone who understood the value of connection, the necessity of trust, and the courage to embrace the unpredictable. I had learned that survival wasn't just about getting through danger. It was about who you faced it with and what you learned along the way. Then let's face it together, I said finally, meeting her gaze. Her ears twitched forward, a motion that seemed to hold approval, anticipation, and something softer, something I hadn't expected but felt deeply. Together, she repeated. And as the ship shifted smoothly into orbit, preparing to navigate toward new sectors, I felt the weight of the past, the thrill of the present, and the promise of the future converge. I was no longer just a human operative returning home. I was someone capable of partnership, trust, and growth,